Okay, I want to walk you through drawing a straight line block in figure, and I'm going to start this torso. It's just a sculpture torso. I'm just going to start this with a big envelope. It seems like a big basic shape to me, kind of slanted at the top. It's got this curve running through the center, flatter at the bottom. At this point, I'm just going to gesture in quickly, kind of looking for the flow of things and not getting stuck on any particular contour line at this point. You can see me measuring as well. At this point, I have a feel for where things are going to sit, so I'm going to start marking measurements to see how close I am. I measure this at being about 2 times as tall as it is wide. So I take that width at the bottom and I count it up once, twice. That's about where the height is. You can see my gesture in this is really rather basic. It's just a big shape that's kind of bent. It's like a big bent box almost. It's really simple, but it's enough to get me going. And I'm going to build my structure on top of that. It's going to help the thing feel like it's bending the way that I observe. I'm drawing very lightly here also. I'm not pushing at all. I want to save space so that I can put the final line in with some deliberate marks and some deliberate line quality so that I'm not maxing myself out here at the first. So I'm just counting off measurements. It seems like the belly button, so the distance from the bottom to the belly button, if I repeat that, it goes about 4 times into the height, and it's about as wide as 1/2 of the waist. So I'm kind of keeping that in mind. And you'll pick different things on yours. You'll see some obvious markers that you could measure the distance between and compare. That's all you need to do. There's no hard and fast rules about this. It is usually a good idea to run up the center line and see what kind of measurements you can make, because there are landmarks along that center line. Just to give you the preview of that, there's the pubis, which is the bone down in the crotch area. There's the navel, which is the belly button. There's something called the xiphoid process, which is where your ribs meet. And then there's the sternal notch, which is this little notch right at the base of your neck on the front. All of those things line up on that center line, so I could map them out on the initial curve that I made and keep that bend going in the figure. At this point in the drawing, it's really important for me to keep using straight lines and to not let the curves of the body kind of take over. It's easier for me to be accurate with a set of straight lines than it is for me to draw a perfect curve the way that I see it. So for this drawing, for right now, I'm going to keep it these straight line decisions. It's a straight line block in. One of the added benefits of that is it's going to feel a lot more structural. It's going to feel a lot more anatomical. Instead of having all of these curves, which do feel more lifelike and more organic, there's all these straight lines which feel very structural. You'll notice there's a lot of what I'll call sketchy lines here. They're very lightly drawn and they're used to relate one thing to another. So if I see an angle, I'll run that angle all the way across the body. And then I can see what lines up on this angle. I can use it to build the rest of the contours of the figure. There's no wandering scribble that says, well, I don't know, whatever, whatever. Each sketchy line is observed and deliberate and placed on purpose. That's going to make the overall drawing feel a lot more deliberate and a lot more purposeful. When you use a lot of lines that don't mean anything, just a whatever kind of line, you end up with a drawing that feels very uncertain, very hesitant. So I'm going to carry on mapping these straight lines. I'm getting some of the contours here, but I'm also getting these long relationships that span across the body. You can see that big V in the chest. It's going to help keep me in line. I'm going to be getting a little more definite with the contours, looking at some of the overlaps and things, but I'm not going to really commit to those lines yet. I'm going to save that for the very end. Once I have it really well mapped out, then I only have to focus on what my line quality is like. I don't need to worry about where my line's going to go because it's already mapped out for me. I just need to worry about dark and light and making it an interesting line, and you'll see that as we go. Maybe do a little bit of cleanup here. That line seems to be overlapping way too far. Okay, I'm going to use my carbon pencil now to go through and make some darker lines throughout the figure. Really thinking about my line variety now and making some clear contours. I like to pick an intersection and kind of flick my line away from like that intersection, leaving room for dark and light lines to still happen. So I'm not going to use the same bold line everywhere. I'm going to let it be this come and go kind of line. It'll add a little bit of dimension to the figure without needing any shading. I think one of the harder things about this is not going overboard with your line. You only need it in some places. You don't need a hard line everywhere, and it can be more effective to have this hit and miss line. Okay, so that'll just about do it for this torso. The step-by-step on this is I started with a gesture, just getting overall relationships. I started measuring the proportions and double checking where things were at and saving my commitment until later. And I also used a straight line to describe any information that I see. I didn't use curved lines everywhere. I made straight angle line decisions throughout the figure.